Today, from Whispering from the Rowan tree, is a very personal story because it happened to me. I am telling this as it might just help someone who finds themselves in a similar situation. It is entitled, "We All Need a Friend Sometime." As I said today from the Rowan tree, this is a story about something simple and yet for many quite rare. A friend. Not the kind the world easily understands, not the kind that fits neatly into a shape or a label, but the kind that arrives quietly when everything else feels as though it is falling apart. There was a time when life had become very small, not in size, but in safety. My house by the lake should have been peaceful. It was beautiful in the way still water often is, calm on the surface, holding everything beneath it. But inside that house, things had begun to change. Slowly at first, and then not so slowly. Days became careful. Evenings became something to get through. And nights were no longer a place of rest. It is a strange thing how life can look ordinary from the outside, and yet feel entirely different when you are living inside. It happened almost by accident. There had been bad weather, a storm that had passed through, and an older gentleman came up the road to check that everything was all right. He was one of those people who quietly looked after others and was concerned about their well-being. He spoke kindly, asked if everything was fine, and then suggested a walk down to his home. "You should meet a few more people," he said. "It helps to know who's around." Down there, in a large workshop, was a man working carefully on a music box. There was something about that moment, the steadiness of the work, the small, intricate detail of it, that held attention in a way that felt peaceful. Pleasantries were spoken briefly, nothing important, nothing that would have suggested anything at all. And yet, something had begun. Later, when work needed doing on the house, he came back. There was a building to be done. A space made for a child, adjustments, improvements, practical things. And as he worked, coming and going, something very simple grew. Conversation. Laughter at times. Understanding, without needing to explain too much. He saw more than most people saw. And she said very little, but enough. And somewhere along the way, something unspoken was offered. If you ever need anything. His name in the story would become Miles. Not just for who he was, but for what was travelled. The miles between conversations, the miles of understanding, the quiet support that carried across distance and time. In the house on the lake, life did not improve. It became harder. The kind of hard that closes in quietly. And then, all at once, there are moments when a person realizes they cannot stay. And when that moment comes, it does not arrive with strength. It arrives with fear. A suitcase, a leaving, a hotel room. Just her and her child. And after that, silence. There was no one to talk to. No one who truly understood what had been happening. And so, a number was called from a phone box. The cold glass against her shoulder, coins ready in her hand. After taking her daughter to school, holding herself together just long enough, and then dialing. At the other end, someone answered. He would answer, not with solutions, but with presence. I've had a bad day, she might say. So have I, he might answer. And somehow, between those simple words, something steadied. Because sometimes, one voice on the other end of the line is enough to get through the night. Misunderstandings. The world, of course, did not see it that way. It rarely does. People see a surface and they decide, they guess, they assume. They create stories that fit what they think they understand, and when something doesn't fit, they reshape it until it does. There were whispers, accusations, ideas that had no truth, but carried weight all the same. And those ideas brought with them something else. Unnecessary hurt, unnecessary fear, and a pressure that forced something simple into secrecy. Not because it was wrong, but because it would not be understood. There is a quiet lesson in that not everything we see belongs to us to define. And when we do, without understanding, we can do more harm than we realize. What it was and what they had was not dramatic. It was not declared. It did not need to be, because it was built in small moments, in conversations that ran late into the night, in pauses where nothing needed to be said, in the quiet relief of knowing someone else knew who you really were beneath everything else. He got to know the real her, and she got to know the real him. Not the versions the world saw, but the ones that existed underneath. He had his life, full, busy, outward, filled with people and commitments. She had hers, quieter, careful, shaped by survival and the need for peace. They were different. And perhaps that was part of why it remained what it was. So here is the truth. There was never any room for it to become anything more. Life had already made that clear. What remained was a friendship, and somehow that was exactly what was needed. It did not ask for more. It did not require more. And because of that, it stayed true. Not less than anything else, just different. Then there is the passing of time. Time moves on, as it always does. Lives change. Distances grew. The intensity of those days softened into something quieter. My house by the lake was lost. And life in its way began again elsewhere. But what had been known, what had been seen in each other, was not something that could be undone. Because once someone has truly seen you, that knowing does not disappear. There are times in life when everything feels as though it is falling apart. When the world becomes smaller, harder to trust, and difficult to stand in. Time does what it quietly does. The sharp edges soften. The urgency fades. The things that were once impossible, or they felt impossible to carry, settle into something lighter. And with time comes something else, perspective. Not every connection we make in difficult moments is meant to become a life we step into. Sometimes, when we are not yet healed, rushing towards something more can simply reopen what has not yet had time to close. Looking back now, it's clear that what was given was exactly right for that time. Nothing more was needed, and nothing more would have been right. And perhaps that is something worth remembering, that not every bond is meant to grow outward. Some are meant to hold us steady until we can stand again on our own. And sometimes, in those moments, someone appears, not to fix it, not to change it, but simply to be there, to listen, to understand, to see you when you no longer feel seen. The world may not understand those kinds of friendships. It may try to name them, reshape them, or question them. But not everything is meant to be understood from the outside. Some things require knowing. And when that knowing is missing, assumptions can take its place, and those assumptions can bring harm when none was needed. Because some friendships are not meant to become anything more, not because they lack something, but because they are already exactly what is needed. And sometimes the quiet, steady, unspoken connection is the very thing that carries you through. So, from the Rowan tree, this is a reminder that not every connection in life needs a name. Some are simply what they are. And sometimes that is more than enough. Goodbye for now.